Hey everybody, today's day 16 of the Advent streak going through the Gospel of Luke, one chapter a day, and today we're at chapter 16. Now, as you read chapter 16, you probably noticed that Jesus in this chapter, in the two parables that he tells that take up the chapter, Jesus raises some pretty significant questions about material possessions, about wealth, about earthly comforts. And for a lot of people, especially the second parable, the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, is one that we'd rather just kind of pass over and imagine that Jesus didn't tell that story, because it is quite critical of the idea of accumulating wealth and comfortable living on this earth. And so I just want to share a few thoughts about that. First of all, we need to take Jesus seriously here. Jesus is raising the question of earthly wealth, of possessions, of material goods that make life comfortable. And he's raising questions about that. Specifically, the question he raises is, what do we do with what we've got? And the second important thing is that Jesus is raising to the surface the important point that everything we have is something that has been given to us. Our wealth, our possessions, the ability to have a job, to make money, to contribute to society, to attain wealth, all of those circumstantial pieces that have to be in place for us to even earn a living, to make money, to have a good life, all the stuff that contributes to that is a gift. None of us decided where we would be born, or the household we would be raised in, or the environment that we would be in, or the skills that we would have in this life. None of us really decided that. All of those things are a gift. And so Jesus is raising the question through these stories: what are you going to do in this life with what you've been given? And that's the fundamental thing. And so the use of wealth, for example, in the story of the rich man and Lazarus, where the rich man has all the good stuff, good food, good clothing, a good place to live, all the comforts that anyone would want, yet ignores the poor man right outside his front door, is a misuse, from Jesus's perspective, is a misuse of the gifts that we've been given, which is contrary to the Roman world at the time, contrary to our society. In our world, a misuse of the gifts, the stuff we have, would be to give it away. A misuse would be to just share it freely without question. A proper use is to take it in and protect it, and to keep it for yourself, and to very carefully give it away. But Jesus is advocating for something far more radical. And it's all based in this idea of who God is, okay? Remember the video from yesterday on Luke chapters 14 and 15. And the rest of the gospel to this point are getting at the point that Jesus has come to bring salvation. Jesus has come to reveal who God really is, and that God is a generous God, a forgiving God, a welcoming God that gives all to bring us to salvation, to lift us up to his existence. And then Jesus will take that point about God and apply it to our lives and say, you should also imitate this God, because this is the God who made the world. This is the God who made you. This is the God who gave you life. A proper use of the goods that God has given us is to use what we have in imitation of him. And in the case of wealth, in the case of possessions, it's to bring salvation to the world around us by lifting up the poor, the way Jesus is talked about doing in the Gospel of Luke. And Luke, of all the Gospels, makes this point the strongest. Fundamentally, salvation is a this worldly thing And participating in salvation is participating in the ways of God. And that means bringing good news to the poor. That's what the Gospel of Luke is about. It's not about me. It's not about what God has done for me. Yes, it is about what God has done for me, but it must extend through us to the world. God through us to the world. We are people who are stewards of salvation in this world, who are people that God has given the gifts of salvation to. And our job is, like the first parable in Luke 16, to properly manage what God has given us. And what that means is to use it to bring good news, even to the poor, and to take what we've been given and give it away, to lift others up. A lot of people will call this a social gospel, and that's a modern category. For Jesus and for Luke, it's not social gospel, it's just bringing salvation to the world. That's what it's about. So, is Jesus critical of wealth? Only if that wealth is used for your own self-interest. If that wealth is recognized as a gift from God and used in a way that treats it as if we are managers of the things that God has given us, and then uses the goodness that we've been given to lift up the people around us in the world, then Jesus isn't critical of wealth at all. He's saying you're using it properly. So, yes, Luke chapter 16 can be difficult. But the idea that is behind it is that we are participating in bearing the image of God in the world when we act this way with our possessions. And that's what Jesus calls us to, because that's what he's done for us. Our prayer tonight. O Prince of Life, teach us to stand more boldly on your side, to face the world in all of its adversity more courageously, and to not let ourselves be dismayed by any storms of life. Keep our eyes fixed on you in faith. Let us trust you with perfect confidence that you will always keep us and that you will save us by the riches of your mercy. Amen. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.